Welcome to Disclosure Network New York. I'm Nick Curto, co-founder and director, and this is again a live recording for our meeting here at the center in Manhattan, in New York City. If you want to see us on the internet, you can go to dnny.info, and we'll give you the the next meeting coming up with details and the very best and the only way to do an RSVP. You must do an RSVP to attend the meeting, and you must follow the 4 very simple steps to do an official RSVP. We'll have your name at the door, and we do appreciate your courtesy in doing that. We also have, free of charge, what we call the DNNY News Blast, which is almost daily. And when you go to our website, there's a place where you can ask to be put on that list. You'll type in your email address, and from that, you'll be put on a list, and then you'll receive all of the news blasts. And we have a number of deep researchers in the group and people who find articles of interest to the group. And so they'll give them to me, and I will post them. So everyone out there will get a copy of that. So it's free, and we look forward to having you join us. So our meeting today is going to be our featured speaker, Kat McGuire, and Kat is here for the very first time, and I'm very, very excited to have you as our guest speaker. Kat, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Kat, the way we normally do this is to give a little background so they have an idea of who you are. So if I may ask, where were you born?
I was born in Lafayette, Indiana, and if I may take a moment, I'd like to say how I was born.
Oh.
It's just a 1-minute story I've
Sure,
told almost 65 years now, my age coming
Please.
up. When I was born, absolutely nobody knew that my mother was going to have twins. And so it literally wasn't that night, late at night, when the doctor saw the first one was out, there's another one in there, me. So out I came 15 minutes after my sister Colleen, and our dad was out. It was like 1 in the morning. He was drunk. He was calling everybody up saying that my mother had twins, and nobody believed him because we were born on April Fool's Day.
Oh, unbelievable.
So I'm a fooler here.
What a great, thank you for sharing that. That's a wonderful story. So you said you have an older sister.
15 minutes, yeah.
15 minutes, okay, but technically an older sister. Do you have any other siblings?
Yes, a brother Tom who lives in Berkeley, and then skip a year, Gina lives in Wisconsin, and then Tina a year after it lives in Boston.
So that's a nice family,
5
a big
kids,
family.
yeah.
Good for you. And so did you stay there when you were growing up there, or did your family move? Or?
Regretfully, no. I grew up in a little town of 900. I was stuck there for 18 years, and it's like, get me out of here. I couldn't wait for college. And so I went to Georgetown, and I was just so glad to get away from it. Very small, 900, and the whole county to this day doesn't even have like a Kentucky Fried Chicken, a McDonald's. It's very rural.
Okay.
It's farming country, and by the time I got to school, I was intellectual, but I had corn cobs hanging out of my ears. So I kind of didn't fit in at the Georgetown crowd, but I loved Washington. It was just foreign. I grew up reading the New Yorker, ironically enough, and my mother always taught me to read, so I was highly precocious intellectually, and I was more interested in the city of Washington and all these foreign people than I necessarily was at yuppie Georgetown.
So you went from 0 to 1,000
Yeah.
real fast.
Yeah, we didn't travel much. We were working class. So I never really got to see too much of the world, and once I did, it's like, so I've been to about 50 plus countries, and my twin sister's been to, she's up 90 about now, so we're just very interested in traveling and seeing the world.
That's excellent, and there's nothing like traveling. You learn so much every single time, absolutely. Yeah. So then from there, tell us how your interest propelled you into where you are now.
Okay. Well, my sister was always more the political one. She went to University of Wisconsin at Madison and got deeply involved in radical groups. This was like the 70s. And I was at Georgetown, so I wasn't yuppie preppy, but I was more involved in a hedonistic lifestyle, if you will. So she used to call me her antithesister because she was highly political and I wasn't as much. And we were apart. I've lived with her. We were together almost our entire lives, but we were apart for like about 5 years total, and gave us the opportunity during college to really develop ourselves and become separate. We looked alike and dressed alike until we were 12 years old. And I always spoke in we say this, we say that, and I still kind of do, and I always answer to her name, Colleen. But so she was always out there. She's quite an incredible activist, way more before I was. She was on to South African apartheid years before anyone got there, and then when they went there, then she got into Palestinian activism years before anyone else was really in it. She's a lawyer with the National Lawyers Guild, and she has addressed the issue of Palestine, the question of Palestine at the United Nations General Assembly. She has spoken twice.
Fantastic.
And she, on behalf of Palestine, she has been to Yemen, met with the president there, Tunisia, met with Arafat, and I can't remember all the other places.
No.
So she has been very deeply involved. And then she fell in love with a Greek god, and he absconded her off to Greece.
Wow.
And so now she runs an adventure travel agency.
Is that true? Really?
Yes, she's really into biking. She biked from New York to San Francisco by herself once. So she's kind of larger than life. And over the years, I've been more liberal, and it took me a while. I remember in 1984, I think I voted for Ronald Reagan. Maybe she got me not to. I went in kind of a yuppie route finally. But once I saw the light, I became pretty much a strong, it's always kind of been there, but I would say a pivotal year was the late 80s, and then I just really switched.
Snowball.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then for both of us, we've been card-carrying leftists for many years, just totally believe what our leaders tell us.
Oh my
Noam
God,
Chomsky
yes.
said.
Welcome
Yeah,
to the
of
club,
course.
right?
Yeah, I went to the Marxist school, studied Kapital, Das Kapital. So we were totally bought in, and we are late to the game. It wasn't until 2010 that we were traveling in Turkey and in a remote part, and she was climbing this embankment so that we could get out of this tunnel and not have to go all the way back, and she climbed up, and she ended up falling on bowling ball sized rocks about 10 feet and broke both her ankles.
Oh.
So, and this is someone who runs 5 miles a day. So all of a sudden she had a lot of time on her hands.
Okay.
And she just kind of started poking around the internet and looking, and somebody had been, a lawyer colleague had been bugging her to, 9/11, it wasn't what they said, and she's like, yeah, right, an inside job, what are you talking about? I mean, we knew it was just karma, blowback for all of the violations this country has done worldwide, but we had never taken it to that level, and so she started sending me stuff, and I'm like, oh, wow. And she's a lawyer, so she really vets a lot. I am more, she's more outer, and I'm more inner. I'm actually also a professional palm reader. And so I have a spiritual journey, and she does too, but I'm more spiritual, and I'm political, but not as much as her. So together we're the yin yang, and we're a great team.
Well, that's a balance, and I think that's terrific. You have very different interests in some cases, and yet you complement in others, so that makes sense.
We have the same interests. One of us is just more heightened in one or the other.
If I could, just very briefly, what are your main issues that you are focusing on lately?
Lately, I would say things around mind control and Zionism, the full history of Zionism. I have a monthly study group that is, for over a year, about a year and a half now, has been studying Zionism in all of its forms, and we haven't even gotten up to 1950 yet, because that's just what we're seeing now is just a manifestation. So that is a very strong interest of mine.
Excellent.
And any and all false flags, especially the ones that most people don't buy. The moon landing.
Oh boy.
I'm very deep into aliens and disclosure issues. So I am on the real far end out there on 9/11, and some of the liberal 9/11 truthers I have a hard time with.
I was talking yesterday with Les Jamerson. He's a dear friend of mine. Do you know Les?
Yeah, and he was the one who told me about, well, I'd heard of it. What was the study group?
Oh, the Urantia book?
Urantia, yeah.
He's, that's how I met him, he was going to a study group where I was, and that was like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And Les is such an amazing man trying to seek the truth of 9/11, and the lawyers have now got, as you know, the case going on. This is very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And Les just told me that he's going to address the group in a couple of months and bring a couple of the lawyers, which is incredible, from this group.
Oh, excellent.
So, yeah, I'm really excited about that. And needless to say, you are in such incredible company here with these people. They really get what your issues are, and we're with you on that, and we explore all of that.
Great.
So really, I couldn't be more thrilled to have you. I've been looking forward to this since we talked. I've been looking forward to your interview. Well, I'm going to then say to you, you want to present a talk, an informal talk. So why don't you start that, and we'll see how that goes, and from there.
Okay. All right, so as you can see, my talk is about the art world, left gatekeepers, and the dangers of identity politics and censorship. So this is not my computer. Let's hope I do this right.
You can use a mouse.
Oh, right, okay. And let's see, how am I, well, I'll just go like that. All right, it's going like this. We had to make a PDF out of it. All right, so this originally kind of started because the Metropolitan Museum of Art had an exhibit at the McGuire on art and conspiracy. And let's see, I'm trying to see if you see what I see. I wonder if I can close that thing. I probably shouldn't play with anything here. Press F. Okay, that's gone. So now, oh, okay, so you can see the whole screen now. Okay. And so I took a tour there because, as it says below, this was like one of the first times the art world had seriously looked at conspiracy theories. So I definitely wanted to see it. And how many people saw that show?
Good.
Okay, great. And I wrote an essay on it, which got me here, and I had 2 other interviews online. And I think it's a pretty good essay. I should have put the URL here. It's kind of long to write, but I'm not sure. I guess maybe you can put it in some kind of show notes or something.
Yeah, it was, Kat, it was so on target. I read that and went, she gets it. Because I was thinking the same thing that you were focusing on.
Did you do a tour when you went, or you just did your own?
I spoke to the curators 3 separate times.
Oh.
I've been there twice, and the 3rd time they had a lecture at the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
I didn't see that one.
Well, I went to that, and they were sitting in front of me. So when it was over, I said, do you remember, I'm Nick Curto from Disclosure Network New York, and I asked you if we could talk about the exhibit, and they couldn't get away from me fast enough.
Sure, yeah.
I was like, wham, they were gone. That was the 3rd time they did that to me, because I wanted to dig deep. They didn't want any part of that. Are you surprised?
No,
No.
not at all. When you read my article, you'll see how many times I showed them up, the curator. But in any event, this is called Everything is Connected, and if I can scroll up here, if you'll notice the background is a Mark Lombardi painting. And all of these are different connections. How it's connected, it's basically government, crime, and so government, politics, crime, and business, and all of these interconnections. So that's where everything is connected.
I got to just interrupt you for 1 second. He is a hero of mine, and we went to the exhibit, I think in Soho, when the museum, the art gallery there, did a whole exhibit on his work.
Yeah.
And we were not, did you see it?
I didn't see that, but I'm very familiar with him.
Right.
I
So
imagine
we
you read
went,
the book.
and I said, my group would love to dig deep, and he said, we'll give you an hour or 2, come in a week or so, which we did.
Oh my
and
gosh.
they were so amazing, and gave us the deep nitty gritty about his life and he's a hero.
And he died mysteriously.
Yeah.
People
His
probably
wife
don't.
said there was no way that he was planning suicide. We were planning events, And he did not die of natural causes.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, so many people get suicided. All right, so so everything is connected. I think Mark Lombardi's painting really speaks to that. And here is did you talk to this guy, that curator?
No.
Not him. His name is Douglas Eklund, and I went on the tour with him.
Oh.
And so basically I'm not going to share my full article. Yeah, please read the article. It is interesting. But I'm going to be sharing some of it. And I viewed him as, he'd been working there at the Met since 1990. So it wasn't like they just cavalierly threw him out there. And just to even take this subject matter was not done lightly. So whatever came out of his mouth, I assumed he was the cutting edge of them. I responded to him a lot, and it's interesting, our interaction. But in any event, the official catalog in the show notes divides the exhibit into two. Basically, there's a part one and a very clear part two. They're very much divided. And part one has to do with what they would call facts. So that would be work based on historical research, investigative reporting, the facts, the public record, as opposed to the part two. You kind of cross over into the Rubicon, and they just called it the rabbit hole. That's where these facts, they do admit that they are just as much researched and investigated, but instead of hewing to a public record line, instead now what they're doing is all of this speculation. And as one reviewer said, the fever dream of the disaffected, all fantastical, and that it goes off into this right-wing area, which is today's conspiracy. So that's one way to kind of have viewed the exhibit. But there's a couple other ways. An alternative depiction, what first came to me, was conspiracies that have proven to be true versus those that are still unproven. So in part one, they had all the proven ones. You had, there was JFK. Is that proven? I mean, everybody knows it. But COINTELPRO, that's a public record. We all know that. The Chilean coup with Allende, the October surprise. And then there's some that aren't totally proven yet. Things about the Illuminati, Freemasons, Vince Foster's quote, suicide, alien disclosure. So those all kind of fall into unproven, and I'll tell you in a minute why that's not totally true, that's a proper dichotomy. And by the way, all of the art in here is from the show. So some of it applies to what I'm saying. It's just, I had to make it pretty here. But another depiction is past history versus contemporary history. So the past history are those things that have already been proven that we know about. It's easier to talk about what happened in 1972, September 11th, 1972 in Chile, than it is to try to talk about what happened with Charlie Hebdo or San Bernardino or, of course, 9/11. So interestingly enough, this contemporary history, what's happening right now, sort of the same stuff, was nary a word mentioned. So another depiction would be what they saw professionalism, professional reporting and investigative reporting. And the Nation spoke to that, saying it's easy to assume these ideas come hand in hand with right-wing delusions, but a new show at the Met suggests that until recently, conspiracy theories have been a leftist game. And so it was in the past. COINTELPRO, October surprise, those were all leftists who were diligently, professionally researching those, but supposedly they stayed to the public record. Well, there was no public record back then. It's just been proven now. But in any event, that's how a lot of the reviewers saw it. And now the current is the rabbit hole. Everything was the rabbit hole, which is totally right-wing, conspiracy nuts, wacky, and the deplorable. So there was this whole hidden agenda of Trumpism comes out. Trump becomes the manifestation of all things wrong with the country now. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But even on the curator's opening statement, he had to mention Trump as he talked about the annus horribilis, horrible year, as if we were all of accord. Well, I can't stand Trump any more than the next person, but in a public forum like that, I just felt that that was way too partisan and assuming even. So there were various ways to depict the show, but basically their depiction spoke to denial. The word truth or truth movement were never mentioned a single time. I mean, you would think in this, truthers, no. Because that's kind of people more who have facts. 9/11 was virtually absent. He mentioned it in passing about something else, but there's nothing. Maybe Sue Williams had something in there about nanoparticles, but it's virtually gone. You're talking about conspiracy and you're not even talking 9/11. The Kennedy murder, that was portrayed as, oh, just always a mystery. Excuse me? I don't think so. For 50 years now, the research community has been investigating that cold case, and it's pretty much solved if we could take it to court. There's no mystery about it. The only mystery is the one that they keep trying to propagandize. There was no mention of Gladio, Operation Gladio, that happened. Gladio. It happened back right after World War II as part of the Cold War, and it was basically troops that we left behind, operatives, to create all kinds of problems, bombings, kidnappings, and make it look, it was put in the newspapers who were part of this, the press was a part, to make it look like it was leftist. So nobody would vote communist or any kind of leftist, and it was all false flag terrorism. And it's the same kind of stuff that is happening now. And so it's really important to understand your history, understand Gladio, Gladio. It's a Western operation, and it's not too different, not too dissimilar to what's going on now. The CIA conspiracy memo was hardly even depicted at all. There were 2 government memos that were shown and blown up really large, but I was sure one of them was going to be the conspiracy theory memo. I mean, we're talking, this whole show is about conspiracy. No, not even there. It's like, okay. I didn't feel the curators were very able to pluck the nuggets of history and really put them forth. And then there was 0 mention of our contemporary conspiracies, our modern day Gladio that's going on. So those were very much failings of the show, I felt. But I didn't expect much. The mere fact that they had it is like, oh my gosh, right there, because we're usually highly marginalized. So I would just like to, this is a little long, but this is text from the article I wrote, missing the truth of contemporary conspiracies. They didn't talk about them at all. So I wrote, after squeezing fascist mileage out of each successive terrorist attack, what they're doing today, manipulated events like 9/11, Charlie Hebdo, the Boston Marathon, Orlando, Bataclan, San Bernardino, Las Vegas, Parkland, etc., each become a blurred cog in the fear machine designed to bully a cowed populace into silent obedience. So that's part of my summary of this article I wrote about having gone. And then I had one other thing, that how they deny the truth. The truth about history. They're not even talking real history. So while the show dealt directly with history, it could never be referred to as history because history is concerned with facts. And since so many of the actual facts are hidden and unmentionable, the events have to be deceptively defined as conspiracies, never history. The powers that be are waiting for each false flag's seculum to pass into the memory hole so that the faked history can assert itself as uncontested truth. And a seculum, interestingly, is the length of time roughly equal to the potential lifetime of a person or the equivalence of a complete renewal of a human population. So the term originally meant the time from the moment that something happened until the point in time that all the people who had lived at that first moment had died. In other words, all the witnesses are gone, and then they can really play with history because there's nobody there to counter them. So this is supposedly about history. Well, they only looked at history. It's not about history, but they kept truth confined to history and then wouldn't even deal with contemporary history because already 9/11 is history. There are people who don't even know anything about it. So that was the conceit of the show. And then there was a lot of media that reviewed the Met show. The media all obligatorily pointed to today's Trumpian right to indict conspiracies, avoiding how, in an earlier era, conspiracies were spot on. But we're just grateful that they were covering the subject, because all of us, we're highly marginalized, anyone who talks about this stuff. But the media likewise, and I read probably at least 10, maybe more stories, they never once used the word truth or truth movement, just like the show didn't. The New York Times, we can certainly expect a negative review. I mean, that's the bastion of fake news. And they called it a crackpot exhibit. They just lambasted it left and right. Conspiracy theorists create conditions for actual violence, once again being able to bring it back to Trump and how the right wing is setting it all up for violence. No mention of, wait, who's puppeteering all this? And it's unfortunately, you can't see it really big. I had the picture to put large. The New York Magazine depicts a maelstrom of crazed evil fears. So we have alien overlords, lizard persons, the grassy knoll, United States of socialism, cover-ups and all. But at least they covered it. Whereas, interestingly enough, the Nation, isn't that part of our tribe, kind of, loosely? They're the ultimate gatekeepers in this, and probably even more. The Nation was far more than the mainstream media. The Nation vilified the Met for giving conspiracy theories the time of day. The title of their article was, "Conspiracy Theories Are Not Entertainment," and cultural institutions legitimize and normalize conspiracy theories when they even allow them to have a platform. By turning them into entertainment, well, it was art, it wasn't necessarily entertainment, it was edifying and intellectual. But in any event, it allows liberals to laugh and brush off the dangers of the right, the big boogeyman right, and Trump as the boogeyman in chief. And Cass Sunstein, who was in Obama's administration, he's a lawyer, and he pathologizes truth even as right-wing nutters, and wants it, as a lawyer, he wants it to pave the way for legal precedents. And so we even have books like some guy named Brothers wrote, a psychologist who wrote a book that it's really the problem of these truthers, pathologizing us, that there's something wrong with us, just more distraction from actually looking at what's going on. Okay, so how did the left go so astray? Well, as we were saying in the introduction, I bought it for years, left since I was practically teething. Well, my sister was, but she's me, so I'll buy into that. And as I was saying, we were late to 9/11. But once we got it, you can't unring a bell. And so we tried to share it with all of our leftist friends. Now, I don't have many friends on the right, or I didn't at that time. Most of my friends, the farthest out would be liberal, but we have a pretty strong leftist community. And we were, especially our dearest friend, who we went to the Marxist school with, and she's been our friend for 30 years and is a lawyer, we were like sending her all of this stuff. And basically her bottom line was, it's preposterous. Somebody would have talked. Just completely preposterous, and really believes that we have gone wacko. And that's, I just can't believe she really believes that. And in any event, we were forced to go elsewhere to find facts. We're trying to find stuff that wasn't in the Nation. It wasn't on Democracy Now! Where are we going to find this stuff? We were looking further afield, and lo and behold, who's got it? Libertarians! Oh, God! You know, lions and tigers and bears and libertarians. And we did have to hold our nose to get this vital data. Some of this stuff was like, oh God, are they really saying that? Excuse me, I've had 3 abortions. How dare you even begin to tell me that, I'm evil or a Nazi feminist or something? I am a feminist. So it was really hard. But this demanded tolerance, because we put truth above that, and we knew we were on the right track. And it's talk about being open-minded. They accused us of being the most closed-minded. We had to be open-minded and tolerant. My God, this stuff, but the nuggets. So we'd read things that I was reading David Duke, but there's nuggets. There's nuggets everywhere, and that's what you look for. And I asked a friend to be open and read some truth sites. And he was, because I said it'll challenge you, it makes you young just thinking. I was trying to figure out how can I get him to even go down this route, because I can't just say 9/11 was an inside job. Well, I have said that, and he's turned off. So I challenged him to be his best self. And he did, and he researched it, and everything was right wing. It's like, excuse me, how come we've been, a progressive consciousness has been marginalized out of this? So the left has been very pivotal in this. There used to be a regular left, and then remember in the 60s, this new left came that was supposed to be radical and transgressive, and they were. And I'm not sure I know totally what the old left was, but I definitely knew what the new left was, because I was part of that. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, but now they have become the mainstream left, and they are no longer radical. And this dogmatism and tribalizing, just our tribe, if you're outside our tribe, we're not going to listen to a libertarian. I sent one, and I'm kind of connected with people, not at the very top tier, but I would say the next tier down of leading leftists who run organizations like FAIR, have run for Congress in California. I know these people. So I kind of know where they're coming, the left leadership is at. And I feel that their very closed dogmaticism, not wanting to open up to new ideas. I was going to say that one of them, who's fairly high up, said, before he knew where I was coming from, I hadn't totally jumped in, but stay away from 9/11. It's a cult. So, and these are really intelligent people. And I believe that the left, not that you had to go straight down the rabbit hole all the way into believing no one landed on the moon, but they squandered a lot of this goodwill that we had from the 60s. The left was huge. People were into more free love, just whole new ideas opened up from the 60s, and they were all more in the progressive line. And I believe that our leadership, my former leadership, squandered that. So there's the whole interesting concept that you guys have probably heard of conservatives versus liberals, the right brain versus the right versus the left. It's not right brain, it's the right people. But anyway, the brains are wired differently. They're saying people who have right brains, I shouldn't have written it that way, I don't mean right, left brain. But anyway, the right are conservative Republicans. Their amygdala tends to rule more. Somebody did some kind of scientific study, and so they have reptilian brains. They're more fight or flight, reactive, traditional. They get more emotional, argumentative, whereas the left supposedly is more, they are liberal Democrat, and they're rule with the prefrontal cortex, more rational, don't jump to conclusions, have more self-awareness, social awareness, open to change, more innovative. So that's kind of supposedly a conflict between the two. And they say between nature versus nurture that we can change. So I guess that's how some people can flip to one side or the other, and maybe your brain morphs accordingly. But in any event, the left has devolved, in my opinion. I guess there's the morphine I was just talking about there. They've abandoned their strength, which is rational thinking. You could always rely on the left in academia and even activists for study groups and thinking, and you don't really see that too much with people on the right across the whole spectrum. I remember being in study groups with a lot of working class people. How many working class right people are there? Not necessarily. So I believe that the left has devolved into a reptilian brain. It's like, what has happened to all these people? And Trump has just heightened it. It's on steroids now. I believe it's connected with the Frankfurt School and identity politics, which I'm not necessarily going to go into here. I think I mentioned it a little later, but that has put them on that path. So that now we have Antifa. Wait a moment, what could be more fascist than Antifa? So it's all this Orwellian, left has actually become right. And the liberals especially have alliances with the 1%. Hillary is cozy with Henry Kissinger. They're applauding the FBI for all this investigation, which has found nothing. So they don't even have a leg to stand. Where's your thinking? Your thinking caps? It's just all this emotional vitriol. How did that happen? I'm not really sure. There must have been a brain morph there from whatever. So that has been very frustrating. And so, because I have so many friends, a friend of 30 years who we are no longer talking to, other friends are just, take me off your email list, did not want to hear about Southern Poverty Law Center. So, okay, one by one, just last week another one said, could you please remove me? So, but excuse me, as those go by the wayside, other friends come to fore as well, and we've my sister and I have developed some really good allies and colleagues and friends, and just are in a whole new path. But in any event, my former left friends have been, and liberal left. Well, the left has become practically liberal. I call it the mainstream left. But they have become ripe fodder for just figuring out what is going on here. And my sister and I are in the process of, we want to write a paper about this, and we're taking a sabbatical in March, and I hope this is one of the outputs. We have about 3 or 4 projects that we want to have a written white paper on. I don't know if it's going to come to that, but in any event, this concept of profile of a truth denier. They're being gatekeepers and not gate seekers, if you will, seeking the truth of those who do keep gates. So we've discovered some key hallmarks of these truth deniers. So unlike the hoi polloi and the right, leftists are far more apt to diss truth or conspiracy. The hoi polloi, that's like your basic a plumber, sort of non-intellectual people, and the right, as I was saying, doesn't care as much. But the left tend to be more intellectual, and the worst are the PhDs. They're the very worst. They're the ones who have been most occupied of the mind. And they're clueless that they're the primary target of the CIA conspiracy meme, the one that was invented to counter the Warren Report. So they're the ones most likely to adhere to the meme in toto. Oh, I'm no crazy conspiracy nutter. That's not me. Meanwhile, they're like falling completely into the hands. They're who actually the CIA targeted. You want to go for the people who want to do social change, have the intellectual chops to make it happen and see it and formulate it into policy. And they don't realize that they have been targeted and occupied and manipulated, and yet they're very arrogant about it because they think they know everything. And so what happens is the minute you say, oh, that's a conspiracy, now the CIA doesn't even have to kind of work it. Everybody silences the people who buy into this, and what they do is they shut down serious inquiry or challenges to official narratives. So I'll be talking to my friends. One friend is like, we've already discussed it at the very highest levels. Heaven forbid we go into some details. No, I already know. They have their opinions there. And then our leaders are afraid of losing their funding and or their forum. Because they certainly will. More truth denier traits. The arrogant ego. The left is used to being all knowledgeable when they're on the reservation. So there's a very clearly defined borders, the PhDs being the worst. They know a lot. And I trust them to know a lot. I knew a lot all within here. But for 9/11 and truth and everything, conspiracy, you have to go outside those boundaries, off the reservation, and start looking. And it's dangerous terrain. There's all kinds of planted disinformation. There are nutcases and wacko stuff. How do you vet? How do you sift the wheat from the chaff? But you can, and you do find people who know. And so this research and vetting is very time consuming. So part of it, I think, is they just don't have the time, and rather than admit, I don't know anything, what's going on, it's just, no, that's, if you can just block it off like that, then you don't have to engage at all. So they tend to shoot the messenger. Oh, they're just right-wing nutters, and all that information is just right-wing nut stuff. Good, I have time now so that I can binge watch Homeland. And so then they have also what they've confused me. One friend told me I had a superiority complex. Oh, you just want to know more than everybody else.
Oh,
Are you kidding? Please, know as much as me, know more than me, please. I want you to vet this because you don't believe it. Can we just go through it? No, I'm not going through it. Let's go through it, please. No, won't touch it. So everyday people don't have their egos invested in their knowledge. And their livelihood is not based on funding, big audiences, or on holding some nonprofit chair or running for Congress. And so people who don't have those attachments, there's no ego that they have to figure out what's wrong with you, or no, I already know about it, based on their prejudices. It's like, if you were on a jury, would you want all of your information, including about the defense, to come from the prosecution? Well, that's what you're doing. So, and Amy Goodman, I personally know 2 people who have asked her, and I secondhand have heard of others, on why she doesn't cover 9/11 truth. And she says, I don't want to die. Oh, we do. Thank you. So on the one hand, you can't falter. We would lose her program, and in terms of mainstream left programming, it's really quite good. I get the newsletter, her e-blast every day, and I'll look through it, and I would say about 80% is like, great, this is good, but it's all still framed within the context of what mainstream media says, only it's a left critique. Heaven forbid anything goes beyond, and I will never forgive her on Kennedy's 50th anniversary. Who does she bring in? Some mafia expert. How dare you, you ignoramus. But we would lose even that. So that is true. But, so, all right, I'll give her a bit. But my friends, you don't own or run any of this. As Gandhi said, if the people lead, the leaders will follow. And so I take more fault at the little guys who are a little bit above who won't even look at it. So, because what is a conspiracy anyway, for God's sake? Classically, it's criminals, investigators, and detectives asking who, what, how, and why. They couldn't do their job if they didn't come up with theories. But when citizen investigators try to apply the same techniques, we're denounced. Denouncing conspiracy theory is like the silencer of a gun. It discourages critical inquiry. So I ask these people, follow the evidence, not ideology. But they've been so brained that they can't seem to make out anymore what's ideology and what is just raw evidence. It's just astonishing when you see PhDs doing this. I know several PhDs who even believe in the lone gunman. It's like, are you kidding? And these are leftists. One is a leading edge environmentalist in New York City, PhD wunderkind. Totally believes Oswald did it. It's like, very hard. So the left movement has devolved from people against the 1% to people against white supremacism. What is that? During Occupy, the left was focused on the 1%, but our movement got infiltrated and subverted, and the academy's focus on identity politics rolled over clear into excess. It became all about white supremacists and conspiracy truthers. It all became this ugly melange. White supremacists, yeah, all 200 of them, and half of those are infiltrators. They need this concocted enemy. Half the left doesn't even know that their marionneteers are just pulling all of their strings. And a lot of it is just kind of willful ignorance. So somehow the gatekeepers or the actual both together, they've got everyone to shift from an anti-1% to an anti-white supremacism analysis. And so it's all about identity. Antifa is the classic reptile brain fascism. Russiagate is such non-rational thinking. It's actually a conspiracy theory, and everyone's on that bandwagon. So, via identity politics, the manipulated left has created a false linkage of conspiracy as right-wing and elides completely what was once actually a left-wing focus. Not to mention turning their thinking caps off and not even wanting to deal with truth. So, identity politics is binary thinking. The Frankfurt School, if you don't know what that is, I highly encourage you to look. Well, actually, I used to be not connected to the Frankfurt School, but that's my legacy, that's my heritage. You've probably all heard of Herbert Marcuse. He was a leading Frankfurt School author, writer, and teacher, educator, and his wife, Ricky Marcuse, in, I believe it was like 1986, we held in my home an anti-racist workshop with her. I'm very deep into feminism. I remember being very much a part of strong black liberation groups. They met in my home as well. So I'm not averse to the basic precepts of the Frankfurt School, but it's that cultural Marxism has gone haywire, and actually maybe not. Actually, it's been successful beyond their wildest imaginations because the end point of cultural Marxism is society completely falls apart, and then they can build the revolution anew. Because somehow the workers didn't want to overthrow, lift off their yokes and have revolution. So, well, let's look at the educated classes, and that's what cultural Marxism does, use culture and identity to reduce the bourgeois ruling class to nothing, and then we can build afresh. So that's why everything's kind of falling apart. So on the one hand, the first inklings of that came out, yeah, some of it needed to. Feminism, all of that, it's necessary. But the political correctness angle of it promotes tribalism and is actually ultimately counter-revolutionary. This whole left intersectionality can no longer see the big picture, especially class. Because part of the problem that we have these internecine wars is because we have this whole level of oligarchy ruling us. And it's been said, everybody knows from the Princeton study, that we are a completely disequilibrated society. But for somehow it's devolved into this binary point of view of us against them. If I'm black, then them is white. If I'm a woman, them is men. So all of this internecine battles and identity politics are important, but not when manipulated and weaponized. The left has become like Mao's Cultural Revolution light. Remember how the running dogs of capitalism would have to go through the gauntlet and 16-year-olds are like beating them up? It's not too much different than what's going on now. They may not be throwing rocks at them, but lots of people have lost jobs. It's been very difficult. And a lot of they talk about the right being, can't think with their prefrontal cortex. The stuff that's coming out of the left is not even, you can't even make sense of it half the time. So I am aligning with transpartisanism. To be a transpartisan, take the best of both. So at the left profile, what's really good about them is their intellectual heft, their ability to interrogate the state, and their progressiveness. I've always been a progressiveness, and even as I call myself often a progressive truther. The downside is they naively trust the government, probably because they have more strings attached. At least the new left now is the establishment left. They want to stay on the reservation. They won't dare go off, and they think they're being transgressive when they get to the very tip of it, the tippy toe part of it. And they won't pursue truth evidence. As if asking it is poking a finger in someone's eye. No, finally, we're having 9/11 hopefully go on trial with the grand jury, and we can talk truth as opposed to all of this ideological hysteria. And where the right, what I get and appreciate from the right is a healthy distrust of government. They do pursue the truth, and they come back with strong data. And I respect their right, respect that they want to protect privacy. The downside is Neanderthal social solutions. I used to be very pro-gun control, and I'm not necessarily now. I'm still completely anti-gun, gun abolitionism. but not this gun control where the state is armed to the teeth and the people now have nothing. I'm not going to go out and buy a gun, and I'm not going to go out and support the NRA, but I'm not going to diss them anymore. And abortion, well, I gave my game away on that one. And immigration, I think that's become so polarized and weaponized that it's not even what it should be. My grandparents were immigrated this country. I'm a dual citizen. I have an Italian passport. And I love how Chris Boleyn says 9/11 is the anti-war movement. 9/11 truth is the anti-war movement. Once we get that, everything like a tumbler lock will just click into place, and it's like we're going to have our torches and pitchforks out there. But no, they're too busy in this solipsistic navel staring. So, and then finding who's wrong because they don't align with your navel. All right, censorship, the left's complicity in this. So there's been massive censorship and silencing, supposedly a lot of the right, but that's not uniform. It's beyond anything the Soviets or Stasi were ever capable of. All of this is under the radar. A lot of people don't know at all. How do you know what you don't know if you're only reading mainstream or mainstream left publications? So if a tree falls in a forest and no one was around to hear it, does it make a sound? So a lot of people are totally clueless. The incredible amount of Orwellian censorship going on. So why has the left turned so right? The misguided identity politics brought them into this co-optation to Hillary. So that is their own selling out without having to look at it, acting like, well, we're being pragmatic. I remember there was a Nation article, and about 13 leading leftists, it was right before the 2016 elections, and it's like, well, who to vote for? None of them could say Hillary, but none of them would say Jill Stein. Or maybe it was before the primary and Jill Stein was an option. But none of them would say Hillary, but they couldn't say anything else. So the default for voters was Hillary. This kind of passive, total lack of backbone and vision. And then, for example, the Left Forum, which is the leading left conference for the past, oh gosh, how many years now? Maybe 30 years, I'm not sure. It used to be called Socialist Scholars Conference. They have it every year, and it's huge. They have like 300 panels. And I've had panels for, the first year was fine. The second year, I got kicked out, and we ended up calling it, calling ourselves, we on, like this, you can't imagine the kind of jujitsu that I and my partner had to do. We organized it, and we got a room at the same place that totally befuddled them how we did that, and we called it the Left Out Forum. And so we got quite a bit of play out of that, and a lot of people came, and it was probably better than if we'd just been lost among the other 300. But what is the left doing, banning our panels? And the only other group, I believe, that also got banned, they just had one panel, we had 6, was some radical feminists who got banned because they wanted to make the connection between big pharma and transgenders who are being just completely pushed onto more and more drugs, because that's a lifetime thing. And there's all kinds of things with the whole transgender issue that I think leads into ultimately transhumanism. So that you asked for issues, I'm definitely on top of transhumanism. Okay, so all of this censorship, and why is the left supporting it? The thrill that Alex Jones got taken down, like I like Alex Jones, but that saying, first they came for Alex Jones, then they came for who else? And the left, they don't even know what's there because we've been so censored, or they've self-censored, don't realize that it's not all the right that's being censored. So who is being censored? It's nonpartisan. It's equal opportunity. Both the right and the left are being censored, but you only really hear publicized the right because who knows, maybe they have some screwy concepts that they'll throw in. It's like, oh, I can't give that to anybody liberal. They'll add things in. But the left, which is me, or former left, I'm transpartisan now, but of the left legacy, has a lot of solid stuff there. We're smart and we're progressive. So they don't want anyone on the liberal left to hear any kind of leftist tinged truth line. All they want is acceptable dissent. So these people can act like, well, you know, we're fighting against Afghanistan, we're doing this. That's all acceptable. Nancy Pelosi could be opposed to Afghanistan. I mean, there's nothing. They have to do this to keep up the front that there's freedom of speech. You know, you can't give the whole game away. You can't be totally fascist, because then they'd open the door to where we're at, and once you open that door and really start looking, that's what happened to me. And I know that's happened to other people. So the true political dissidents are silenced, or worse. Sample censorships. The academics. I have to put Tony Hall right up front. He's a professor in Canada, and he has a show called False Flag Weekly News that is co-hosted with Kevin Barrett. And a Zionist posted on his Facebook page some ugly graphic that says, "Kill all Jews." He had no idea about it. And rather than the president of the university saying, "Hey, what's going on?" As soon as he saw it, he took it off immediately. The university president suspended him. And it came out that the president was basically in the hands of B'nai B'rith, and Tony went through a really hard time. Well, in Canada, they have a strong union, and the union said, if that's what's tenure mean? We're supposed to be about freedom of speech. Who else but the thinkers? So he eventually got reinstated, but he's retired from that because he was just so maligned. Even afterwards, now we have, even after he was in, they even got the prime minister, I don't think that's what it's called, of that state to speak out. Stephen Salaita, he did a tweet at the time that Israel was bombing Gaza in one of their mow the lawn exercises. He got fired for his tweet against the Zionists. James Tracy, a professor in Florida, they got him, you can't have a blog that's against your salary, some bogus excuse. He has been investigating Newtown. What is Newtown called? Pardon? Sandy Hook, right. Just asking serious questions. And of course, Kevin Barrett, he's actually one of my heroes on the highest pedestal. He's extremely intellectual, funny, very bright, sharp, quick. And he, probably more than anyone, I think, I haven't listened to everybody, but he's out there telling it like it is more than anybody. He has a great show, Truth Jihad Radio, and his False Flag Weekly News, I listen to it every week. And he got fired just for supposedly talking about 9/11 in a class. And then the journalist, we all know what's happening to Julian Assange. This is censorship by death. They're slowly killing him. I don't know if you guys know Marzia Hashemi. She has been for 25 years a strong journalist with Press TV, which is from Iran, where she moved. She's an African American, U.S. I don't know if she has dual citizen, but in any event, she's been coming to this country yearly. About a week or two ago, the state just took her like some kind of banana republic, and she's being held in Washington. They took her from St. Louis. She's in Washington. And there are no charges. She's just picked up. They don't have anything they're saying about her. She's being used as a chip against this war that we have to have with our mortal enemy, Iran. I don't know whose enemy that really is. And then Bonnie Faulkner, one of our stellar journalists, has Guns and Butter Radio, KPFA, Pacifica. How left can you get than Pacifica? They banned her from KPFA, and they not only did that, they wiped out her whole library and just completely it was the leadership who basically did it. There was a huge hue and cry from everybody because Bonnie is just superb. So that's an example. Activist Susie Dawson. Google her name on the internet and look for what they did to her when she was an activist in New Zealand. She's now in exile in Russia, and she runs the Julian Assange campaign to free him. But how they tracked her down, Susan Lindauer, she's a 9/11 she was an activist, but she was actually kind of working with the Iraqi government, and she had a CIA handler. She ended up being scarfed away, Soviet dissident style, into the military prison in Carswell, Texas. It's a psychiatric military prison within a prison. And she was there for a year because they thought she was crazy because she was saying 9/11 was an inside job, and she was saying it louder than most people have megaphones. They've gone after environmentalists and, of course, the Muslims. They're all in kind of lockdown under these CMUs, communication management units, which are basically cages within cages. And then there's the whole issue of TIs, targeted individuals. There's thousands of them, and they could be activists, they could be people in the making, or just guinea pigs, and they have all kinds of incredibly high-tech weaponry, everything from feeding, it's mind control, feeding thoughts into you from, I can't go into the technology right now, I'm forgetting about it, but people who are being used for technological experiments, some of these things, all of a sudden, someone just blows up, tries to blow up the White House. I don't know, voices were talking to me. All of these people really are being mind controlled, I believe, and the poster child for that would, of course, be Sirhan Sirhan. I highly recommend everybody read Lisa Pease's new book about the death of RFK. That book just came out about 2 weeks ago, and it's the bottom line on the Robert Kennedy assassination. And as another example, about 2 months ago, who was it who did that one? I believe it was Facebook did that. 800 accounts just wiped out. It had millions of followers, simply vanished. Groups like Anti-Media, the Free Thought Project, that's a great website. They still have their website. And Police the Police. Heaven forbid you start putting a spotlight on the state. Okay, so who is doing the censoring? Not the government outright, because otherwise the public would have a say-so. We could bring them to court. So it's really not government agencies. In true fascist style, it's these behemoth corporations who now adjudicate freedom of the press. Many were started and still are managed by covert wings of the CIA. They have these community guidelines that allow for all manner of interpretation. You get taken down, well, what? If you can even reach somebody, what? Why? Well, you violated community standards. Oh, I even forgot to say when we were talking about the identity politics, hate speech. What is hate? That my hate is not your hate, and yet they're making these laws around it. It's just terrible. Who are the perps? WordPress has taken down all kinds of people. Twitter seems to follow suit after the main two big boys come in, and that would be Facebook and YouTube. Facebook has thousands of people monitoring for, the last one I saw was sexual language abuse. Who knows what that is? Of course, YouTube, I remember watching Sane Progressive's fabulous videos. She's incredible. Her name's Debbie something. I've watched every single one of them. She's no longer around. I think it's because they censored her too much. And but I remember watching her Las Vegas. She spent over a month just thoroughly investigating it, and it just went black right while you're watching it. It's like, okay. eBay. I know an activist who can no longer do his business on eBay. They didn't give him a reason, but basically they told him, nope, you can't do that. PayPal, I sent a donation to Susie Dawson, who is in Russia, and so you can't necessarily send dollars to PayPal. Talk about a Kafkaesque maze that I went through. She never got her money because from her end the account's frozen. I sent it and said, I want my money back because she never got it. PayPal's in the middle here. No, she got it. No, she didn't. Yes, she did. It's in her account. Well, but she can't access her account for all practical purposes. She didn't get it. I want my money back. No, she got it. You guys have stolen my money. I took it, escalated maybe 4 times, and I got the final no. So ISPs, they just cut your pipes. You no longer have an ISP connection. Amazon was really bad. They do book burnings. There was a false flag, anti-Semitic accusations. You probably remember it with the tombstones, the cemetery headstones that got pushed over. Well, come to find out, it was an Israeli-American youth who was living in Israel, calling Jewish centers with all kinds of threats, and he was the one who did it all. And based on that, ADL used that to go to Amazon and say, there's a wave of anti-Semitism, we have to stop all this Holocaust stuff. And basically they wiped out over 150 book titles that are very hard to get now. You can't even search them. They make no appearance whatsoever in any kind of search. It's not like, oh, well, the other tactics they use, book is sold out. Or when a fabulous book by David Ray Griffin that came out this past 9/11, it's really good, and it's called 9/11 Unmasked, and it's for liberals who are willing to look. It's over like at least 15 issues. They have just the facts. And but that, when they wanted to publish on 9/11 the very day, no, people went and it said, this will come out on September 30th. Then I guess a hue of cry, oh, we have some copies now. All of these tricks that we have no way of countering. And of course, Amazon, once it became found out that that was an anti-Semitic false flag, those accusations, do you think Amazon walked back and said, oh, we can repost all of these books now? Of course not. So they're completely banned. They use that one and forever taken that one home. And also, as part of it, what did I want to say? No, I can't remember. All right. And then what Silicon Valley has now is adjudicators. ADL has a whole center, brand new Find Hate Center right in the middle of Silicon Valley. And that's who they go to. They're like one of the first go-to organizations is their hate going on. I mean, of all people, ADL, if you don't know anything about ADL, I can send you some serious information. And the same thing with the Southern Poverty Law Center. They should just take out Southern and poverty, and they're just like a hate law center. The people that they are saying are hate, it's highly subjective, but when you have a hammer, everything's a nail. And their budget depends on finding as much hate as they possibly can. So we've got a huge array of, and it's not like Stasi and the Soviets had. These are highly powerful technological tools that they're using. Facebook even wanted to put something where they said, it can read your mind so that you don't have to type on your keyboard what you want. Oh, but don't worry, it'll only listen for the answer that you want. It's not going to go in there and squirrel around and see what else you're thinking. I mean, just all kinds of stuff that they're doing that it truly is like David and Goliath. Almost the only thing you could do is just opt out. But even with your cell phone turned off, they can still go after it. So how is the censorship accomplished? They deplatform, so you no longer have your Facebook page. They demonetize. Luke I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, of We Are Change, Radikowski. He made all of his money from advertising. And it wasn't like he was being a millionaire. They just wiped that out. Another woman, Alexandra Bruce, of Forbidden Knowledge, has great stuff. That's a fabulous website. Within one day, she went from making 6 figures and a healthy living almost down to nothing, like 15,000 or something. She was completely demonetized, and it happened when she said something during the 2016 elections about Hillary, and the next day she was out. The algorithming, they algorithm it all up so that it's like shadow banning. You might be 5,000ths. You'll come up. They didn't censor you, you come up, but they played with those algorithms so much. And it doesn't just work for shadow banning. They also play with them to get you to do things, to get you to vote for Hillary. I don't know if you guys remember that one, how they put that together. There's another one that Google, that ABC, they're called Alphabet. Alphabet is very, very dangerous. They have a company called Jigsaw. That's basically Blackwater. And so one of their companies is, let's find people who are terrorist inclined. And so they algorithm it all up when they found that profile. And then they put things before them that will de-terrorize their thoughts, whatever. I mean, how do you know I'm not a journalist just looking to investigate? They've got sock puppets and trolls coming out the wazoo. Well, Mark Zuckerberg, he has one office outside the U.S., and that is in Tel Aviv. And the Zionists have at least 10,000 trolls putting forth, anonymously, of course, that's why they're sock puppets and trolls, fighting anti-Semitism and putting forth their analysis. Or you can go into Facebook jail. A good friend of mine, Rudy Dent, he was one of the first responders, a fireman down at 9/11. He's very outspoken about what's going on. He's been in Facebook jail so many times now, and just on bogus charges. Self-censorship, how many of us don't say either in a group or what we may write just because you'd be afraid. Who knows how you're going to get targeted. I talked about the cyber book burnings, and then they shut down outright content, so it's memory hold without a trace. So really make sure you save your content because if it's not on something that you can actually touch, you don't know where it's going. I have nothing in the cloud. All of my stuff is in hardware that I have locally on flash drives and a drive. And it's equivalent to a small town's entire library being destroyed without a trace when they do this. So history likewise is being falsified. The news today is history, but even our past history, as Orwell said, he who controls the past controls the future. And the winners, misspelled that, I've been so right talking here. The winners write the history. 9/11 and JFK truth, they were my gateways. Once I unclick that, it's like, oh, it's almost like you get a methodology for understanding, for knowing, oh, let me ask this, because you don't know what you don't know. You'll see a program on television, that sounds right, but if you don't know that the lens is really this big, so it gives your mind a way to ask questions to get to deeper truths. I've heard of libraries that have had mysterious fires that have burned valuable historical information, especially in Russia. Documents have been purloined. I know of, read about microfiche that has been gone in, somebody's researching it. 3 months ago they saw this, and now they're going in looking for that one newspaper article that said X, Y, and Z. It's completely gone. They know they saw it, and now it's gone. So, and there's two really great history books by these guys who wrote about World War I. Hidden History and Prolonging the Agony, Doherty and McGuire, superb. They're almost like the template for understanding the kind of shenanigans is too nice a word for it, just vicious meddling that is going on, criminal behavior to purloin history, rewrite history. And another thing they do is they'll purchase and destroy copies of books. Carol Quigley, who wrote an incredible book about the deep state, one of the first to truly reveal it, they thought he was going to be like Douglas Valentine, who wrote an extraordinary book about the CIA, one of the very best ever written. And they thought he was just going to be one of the guys and let the journalists in, because all these journalists, they don't give the secrets away. Boy, Doug Valentine did. You really should read his book on the CIA. But Carol Quigley did too. They opened the doors figuring he knew the rules. You're not going to tell these secrets. And he was a professor at Georgetown. He wrote Tragedy and Hope. They burned every bit of those. There's probably like one or two. It's very rare, but the few that are there, people have managed to keep, and that information has slowly gotten out. And then, of course, Fletcher Prouty. He was he was a briefer. He was an analyst. He wasn't. He was a briefer. He was Kennedy's right-hand person who would go to all of the CIA stations. He went to all 80 of them back in the 60s. So he was. What he says is it's not really the people at the very top, the faces who are the deciders. Yeah, they'll say it publicly, but it's people like him. It's the briefers, the next level and the next level down, who put all this together and then just put it in the people's hands to speak, the rulers' hands. And he wrote a book I highly recommend it called The Secret Team. You want to know how the CIA operates? He wrote that like 50 years ago, but it hasn't changed much at all. The Secret Team and Doug Valentine's book on the CIA, those are obligatory to really know how the deep state works. And the left really doesn't know how they work. They're so naive. Someone would have talked. Excuse me, how do you think the Manhattan Project got off? And don't you think that they have a gun to all these people's heads? Nobody's going to talk. You'll lose your job, if not your life, or you don't care about your life. Well, what about your children's? And so once you start looking in what's going on today, San Bernardino, Parkland, what's really going on? The next step, I'm not saying this cavalierly, but I'm kind of done with JFK and 9/11. I'm really going into history now. I've been looking deeply into World War II, World War I, World War I. Oh, those evil Germans. Just, if you can believe it, flip our World War I and World War II narratives, and you're going to come very, very much closer to the truth. That sounds astonishing. It's like, come on. You'll get thrown out of the room if you even say it. But if you can find the books that haven't been burned, you'll find some real truth. Even on the Cold War, the Soviets weren't our enemies. They never had near the bases. And even today, the Soviets. The U.S. has between 800 to 1,000 offshore bases, military bases. How many do the Soviets have? Maybe 13. But I ask that question. It's one of my quizzes that I ask people. And they'll say, 5,000? They're way ahead of us. Well, like, what are you talking about? Even McCarthyism. Joe McCarthy. Go and Google Michael, what's his name? Piper Collins. Michael Piper Collins. Who? I'm probably getting those right. Michael Piper Collins, I believe is his name. Those 3 words, anyway, will get you. But listen to what he has to say about McCarthyism. And I'm like, now I'm not a dupe. I'm not going to be like, oh, really? But you really start putting some things together, and it's like, were we all played? We know we've been played with 9/11, so it's not outside the ballpark of possibility. And even the 60s, I don't know how many of you have read Dave McGowan. The 60s were completely infiltrated, managed, Tavistock Institute, the whole Manson thing, that was basically a drug deal. The whole 60s, you can't believe how many musicians, Jim Morrison, the Eagles, they all had military parents, Frank Zappa. So I'm not saying they were, but they're...
Frank Zappa's father was a scientist. He was never in the military.
Well, there's a very close connection. And so, but anyway, read about the 60s, because even that wasn't what we thought it was. Who was the acid guy? Tune in, turn on. Larry, yeah. He supposedly was an agent. Who knows? I mean, they put in so much disinformation, it's very hard to investigate. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole, if you will, because I'm really busy right now with World War I and World War II. Because that's where we are today. If you don't know your history, how can you really understand what's happening now? So after I got some current history, I'm going back, and I don't know how much farther back, but World War I definitely is very closely connected to what is going on today. So all of these challenges we're facing, we have huge, too big to fail problems. We've got 5G, oh my God, geoengineering and chemtrails, all this massive surveillance, fiat currency, the Federal Reserve, mind control, the elite pedophilia rings, the extreme inequality. It's just, it's beyond what it was. Elections are no longer a viable option. The whole election thing, whether it's the machine or the end result where you're sitting in a Congress, it's too bankrupt, it's broken, and it's controlled. It's like a corrupt crack house, so that even these squeaky clean candidates you put in there, they're going to get sullied. Their shiny faces get corrupted, compromised, even suicided, killed. So, and those who truly are squeaky clean will self-eject, recuse themselves from the ugliness, or they will get ejected, like what happened to Paul Wellstone. So we have really big problems, and these institutions don't really work. We should be able to all vote. It's possible now. We could do crowdsourcing. Why do we have these people who don't even speak for me, and the entire Congress is owned by Bibi Netanyahu? That's not speaking to me. So what path is there? So there's the people of the mindset, well, we got to work with what we have. No, it's supposedly Einstein said, you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same results. What is to be done? Vision. We need to reimagine, have faith, think the possible. We need a reset, a new way of thinking. People have lost the ability to think, imagine, and create anew. We've got junk food, junk environment, all these digital distractions, junk entertainment. Forget about making policies. Oh, let's go after a health care bill, or let's go for minimum wage. How can you even have minimum wage when they're financing, 12 wars now or something? Policies are not where we're at. We need to reset and affirm our core values, and who's on board with this, not you sellouts. And if we don't, it's inevitably going to come to us the hard way. Some Armageddon, some huge crash, and people are like, wake up, we can't go through the motions. Well, I'm going to vote for this person. It just doesn't work. And where I believe our movement is, I'm a part of the Truth Movement, I'm a progressive transpartisan member of the Truth Movement, is we're in an education mode. Picture us 1963 anti-Vietnam War activists. What did they do then? We're going to make policy and go to Congress? No. What they did was, the people need to learn to rethink and think for ourselves. And what people who are already doing that, we need teach-ins. We need lit tables. And not doctrinaire polemics from on down saying what needs to be done. Everybody's going to find in their own inimitable way how to do this. So it's not like the left right now, if you don't go with this, well then you're out. This is how we do it. And get people to be more open to new ideas. And I believe that not only does it have to be transpartisan, but and not, well, you're with that Tea Party, you can't come here. And even if they say, well, I'm opposed to this or that, okay, well, what do we agree on? And if you're going to be an activist about anything, be an activist around issues where bipartisan, we can come together around issues, be it 5G, be it animal rights, whatever your issue is, but don't stay stodgy in that. We need to open up and reimagine. Be your highest self. When it came time to vote, I told people, be your higher self. Between Hillary was a lesser evil, why are you voting for evil? Be your highest self and vote for what you think is best. And as much as we're pushing everybody else, push your own self, move your own boundaries. These people who are vegans want everyone to be vegan. Well, where is your boundary? Push yourself. I mean, I was a vegan for years, so I'm not coming down on vegans, but don't get in a comfort zone. That's what happened to the left. This is the way it is. And before long, they got ossified. And now they're waking up, and because they don't have, there's too many independents, and they don't have the base anymore. So, of course, they have to continue to sidle under the skirts of the Democratic Party because they don't have a power that they could have. Just as newspapers are losing money, you wouldn't lose some money if you're a newspaper. If you were printing the truth, you would not lose money. And you would not lose your power left if you started speaking truth. But they don't know that. They're clinging to what little power they have because they're chairs now on this and they're running for Congress on that. And stay nimble, learn, grow, question, and keep asking and learning. And the truth really shall make you free. Secrets are more toxic than their contents. They give us anxiety at a low hum. People are just like, they can't focus. And not that I'm perfect, but I have a level of, I wouldn't go so far as to say serenity, but I'm really knowledgeable about a lot of stuff that's going on. And that gives me a sense of control, that are they lying to me or are they not? I basically know the contours. I have a lot to learn, but I have chosen a path that, as I say, the truth is on our side and the truth shall set you free. And we need to be tolerant and open to new ideas, especially with ourselves, push ourselves as much as others. Thank you.
Guys, bravo. Whoa. Kat, we cannot thank you enough
Oh,
for
thank you.
an amazing, amazing talk. And certainly you have an invitation back here.
Oh, thank you.
Also, I have a podcast, and I'd love to talk to you about appearing on my podcast very, very soon on some other points that we
Okay.
didn't get a chance to do. And I want to ask you, I know the listeners might very well want to know, how can they either access your books, your website, anything that they can do to get to know you better in any shape or form? Is there a way we can do that? Whoop.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Take your time.
Sorry.
Want some more water? Take your time.
Deep Truth.
Sorry?
Deeptruth.info.
Deep truth? Okay, hold on.
.info, say
Yeah,
that.
hang on a second, just take your time. You've done an amazing speech for quite a long time, so I imagine you're parched.
No,
of
it just
course.
went down the wrong way.
So to get to know you better as far as any books, whatever, can you give me some ideas?
Well, one place to go online is deeptruth.info.
Okay.
I organized that last June. It was a conference, but it was because the Left Forum kicked us out once again. And rather than try to do the very stressful, put on a whole other conference simultaneous, I'm like, forget it. So we did it online, and we have 25 speakers, everything from dark technology that talks about 5G, smart meters, transhumanism, to Zionism. We've got some really good speakers on that, and one of the speakers is why Bonnie Faulkner got kicked out of KPFA, because she broadcast that. One is on Mockingbird 2.0, and it's about the media and what they're doing. What else? Allison Weir and some people that work with her did a whole one on Gaza and what's going on there, and I'm forgetting a couple, but yeah, so there's a lot there. And I have a website, but it's not for this. I used to do a lot of ecofeminist activism in the early 90s, so I do have a website on ecofeminism, but, well, I can't say that it's dated. This is from the early 90s. I will periodically read, and it's like, yep, I'm down with that. So I'm still a hardcore ecofeminist. If you go to my ecofeminist site, you'll find it. I just had to put it on a new platform, so I think it's called ecofeminism.info. And you'll find what my sister and I did in the early 90s was we had a monthly study group to learn and study ecofeminism. I didn't know anything about it, and I wanted to learn about it. So people would come to our home, and we'd read an essay, and then we would discuss it in an ecofeminist manner. And then my sister and I would write a newsletter based on those discussions. So we have 25 or 30 of those. It's all online. Everything from dreams to atomic testing in the Pacific, to women of color, to men, to urban living, all from an ecofeminist perspective.
Again, what's the...
Ecofeminism.info.
Excellent. Kat McGuire, you're amazing. We love you. Much love to you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. We have would it be okay for a couple of quick questions? We have about maybe 10 minutes, so if you want a very quick question, go ahead.
It's not a question. Is there any way that you can forward that presentation?
This.
Yes, so you could send it.
And I have a lot of URLs that I'd send. If you go to deeptruth.info, there's a lot of resources there, very good resources there. But can you, in some way, if I upload this and I give you a URL, you can put that in show notes kind of thing?
Absolutely can do, yes.
Okay.
Yes, we'd
And
be
then you can
delighted.
send it around to us.
Okay,
I don't know how he does it, but I'll
We'll do
upload
that.
it.
A couple of things, Kat.
Really loud.
The transgender and the pharmaceutical companies, was there drug funding involved in the left forum, or how do you explain that they're not wanting that topic discussed?
Well, it's right now the whole gender issue at its outest edge is the trans people, the transgender people. So well, these are men coming into women's space, basically. They're not women-born men, and they want their rights, and they're very vociferous about it. And a lot of them need and are amenable to drugs. So they make a perfect alliance with Big Pharma.
But how did they ban it from Left Forum? Is Big Pharma funding Left Forum somehow?
No, Left Forum didn't really ban Big Pharma. Left Forum capitulated to political correctness where you can't do anything against feminism, Me Too, gays, lesbian, and transgender. And transgender are the ones who are most out there right now, demanding that, like, I know of, read about women who have marched with, at a women's march and had a sign that just had 2 X's on it. In other words, I'm a woman-born woman, and they got kicked out of the march. You're not allowed to say that. A New York University professor was fired for his job because he refused to use some kind of term, it has this. There's like 67 terms that Facebook recognizes, something like that. It's crazy.
And the other thing is, on your list of who censors, I think we need to add Wikipedia and libraries.
Oh, of course. Very good. What am I talking about? Wikipedia.
Yeah,
Oh.
I can't tell you how many times I've requested books from the library, and they don't have it at NYPL, naturally, but I asked for the circulating copy. They have a large database, and it's connected to a lot of libraries in the country, and the book never arrives. And this happens over and over and over again. And Carol Quigley is one of them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm
Really loud.
I have 2 questions. Just on how you feel about certain things. How do you, like, when you mentioned like what the issues are, like 5G and gene engineering, what do you think about the vaccination issue?
Oh my God. Yeah, that's part of the culling. Yeah, I wouldn't touch those vaccines at all. And who has watched Vaxxed? How many people have actually seen Vaxxed? Yeah, people, it's hard to see. It was banned from the Tribeca Film Festival. They forced Robert De Niro to take it off.
Yeah.
It's hard to find. I happen to have a copy, so I was able to watch it. It's really good. Try to find Vaxxed. Vaxxed.
Another question?
Yeah. I have a second question, but also the Vax, they have a second movie coming out, so they'll
Oh,
for that.
okay.
My next question and last one is, how do you feel about QAnon? Have you heard of that?
I think, yeah, QAnon is supposedly a high intelligence person or multiple people who are trying to disseminate counter information, supposedly in support of Trump. I think a lot of that is just planted, and not that I don't disagree with some of what's said, but by and large I don't trust who is puppeteering that.
QAnon is a hoax.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hands, please. We have time for 2 more quick ones. Go ahead. Really loud. Really loud.
Do you have any extra info on the pedophilia rings, like any URLs?
I have a lot. If people want to, I should have brought cards. Maybe I have some cards. If people want to, I have, one of my emails is called A Small Compendium of Elite Pedophilia Trafficking.
Kat, if you give that to me on email, we can get it out.
Okay.
To a lot more people too.
Okay,
So
so
you-
I would just do put an email out there?
Exactly,
Okay.
we can do
Yeah.
that, so we'll get that to you. And last one?
Hi, this is Michael. I'll tell you a little story, but I'll try to keep it short. My friend has been left, typical type you're talking about, for a long time. But the one place where he is definitely down with conspiracies is because of what he competes with, which is oil companies. He really believes in oil company conspiracies, everyone you can think of, but don't talk to him about the other ones, please. In any case, he wrote a book in which the prologue was written by Buckminster Fuller before he died.
Huh.
And in it, Mr. Fuller said, oh, well, when I was back in the 1940s working for the government, I did a nice study on alcohol fuel, talking about its benefits. But that study died in a fire somewhere.
Yeah.
I remember I saw the fire, I said, now if I tell it to my friend who's a non-conspiracy theorist, he would say, oh, well, yeah, that's it, but everything else isn't.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming and supporting our group. It was a great meeting.